this first question is, what language, characters, events present in the work reflect the current events of the author's day? So I thought sort of the conflict between the Italians and I think they were the Turkish people, right? Yeah. Their conflict was historical, and it kind of, that added to the story, sort of, it helped the conflict, because if they were in Italy, I don't think a lot of the drama that occurred would have quite happened.
I also think it's one of those things where, like, if they were in Italy, it would have been a major no-no for Amor to have married Desdemona and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like the race difference between Othello and Desdemona also was important in that it also highlighted their characteristics. Like, maybe him being a more darker complexion, all that kind of stuff, also showed his darker side. I mean, he smothered his wife just upon a whim that she was cheating on him, as opposed to getting tangible evidence from anyone besides Iago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that kind of without the war, I don't think they ever could have gotten married, because of the war, Othello was kind of able to prove his, like, military worth, I guess. So without that to kind of help him, I don't think they ever would have really accepted the racial conflict going on.
Good question.
Okay, so this isn't actually number 2, but are there words in the text that have changed their meaning from the time of the writing? And I kind of focused on the word villain, which I guess Shakespeare uses a lot, but in this particular one, I have a quote from Ludovico from Act 5, Scene 2, where it says, "Where is that viper? Bring the villain forth." So I guess back then villain was just like a horrible thing to call somebody, and but now it's not as strong at all. It's kind of just like, oh, that guy's a villain in a movie. It's not like an insult, I guess.
And like,
Pause.
so I think definitely another word that has changed meaning, connotation, and maybe even denotation-wise is whore. Because Othello refers to his wife as a whore for being unfaithful, but I think nowadays that's not what that necessarily means. I would say the word unfaithful or cheating or something like that would be more appropriate to what Desdemona hypothetically did to Othello and the sanctity of their marriage. So, yeah. I'm just going to move on to another question, if that's okay. Who are the people who have power in this text? What is the source of their power? How do they hold on to it? And how is their power expressed? This is another one of those things that Shakespeare likes to do, like transition, the power struggle. He likes to transition. Like, if you look at A Midsummer Night's Dream, the fairy king has the power, and then it seems like Demetrius has the power, or the dad. And, like, in this one, Othello seems to have the power towards the beginning of the play, and he maintains it through his military success and all of that kind of stuff, and also marrying Desdemona despite the differences in culture and race. And then it kind of transfers to Iago, because he uses the power of manipulation, of lying, of being a terrible person, a foe, and all that kind of stuff, to take Othello's power away from him by using wordplay to basically drive him insane and kill his wife. And then towards the end of the play, I think the power kind of goes back to not a particular person maybe, but just to what is right in general, because basically everyone who had committed some sort of sin or whatever dies at the end of the play. So, yeah.
I kind of think that, I don't think Othello ever actually has any power, because I think part of holding the power and, like, leading the people is that they'll have to kind of trust and want to follow you. But I think, as we see, like, through Iago and stuff, there's always kind of dissension, and I think a lot of that stems from the fact that he's not like them, he's more, so I think a lot of his power is more superficial. So he kind of appears to hold it as long as he's still useful to the people he's leading.
Do you think that possibly has to do anything with English monarchy? Because I had read in some places, like some Shakespeare, like books and that kind of stuff, like Othello is actually just a euphemism for English monarchy and that whole system of just being useful, being ideally what people want you to be, like that kind of leader, but actually being a figurehead. Do you agree with that, disagree with that?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think especially during Shakespeare's time, there was a lot of uncertainty about if the monarchy was going to stay or not, because they were trying to reform their government and get more power for the people. So I think there was a lot of that.
You want to move on?
Sure. Okay. How does the work consider traditionally marginalized populations? So that's a pretty huge conflict, obviously, with Othello's race. And I think it kind of does two things with them. From, I guess, kind of Shakespeare's view, they can be kind of seen as equal because he does put Othello in a position of power, and he has him marry Desdemona. But I guess from the view of the public, he's still an outsider, and he could still bewitch her to get her to marry him. So I guess there's that kind of conflict going on.
I definitely agree with that. And the other thing that I kind of saw is like it's not just a race struggle, it's a class struggle too, because if you look at Rodrigo, he's, oh my gosh, obsessed with Desdemona and everything about her to the point where he's willing to do anything. And then Iago just basically eggs him on the entire time, like, hey, you can still do this if you're patient, and just basically is like a failed wingman, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's definitely like a class struggle, a race struggle, and maybe even a gender struggle, because if you look at it, Emilia tries to be what is right in this show. She tries unveiling the truth, but then again, Iago kills her. And even though she does let the truth slip, it just shows that the truth doesn't always prevail, that there are punishments and consequences for lying, but at the same time, good doesn't necessarily, like true love doesn't always prevail at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Do you want to ask one?